Welcome to Creatacast with your host, David Welch. Today's show is about the happy warrior. And here's what I mean. There are people out there that don't fit the mold or the general idea of a person who writes, composes, creates, deep thinker. And here's a prime example of what I'm talking about. Sylvester Stallone. People will look at Sylvester, especially back in the day, and think, this guy looks like a bruiser. This guy looks like, I don't even care what they think. The man's brilliant. But a lot of people probably scoffed at him at first. He's a short little man, who's, got that edge to him. But you could easily think like, oh man, his character's a dummy, so, he must not be that smart. Far from it. The guy's a fucking genius. He's a happy warrior. He trains in real life to be as physically healthy as possible. And that's why he's going on into his 70s and looking like a beast still. Same with Arnold. Happy warrior. Great thinker. Speaks multiple languages. Brilliant guy. Went on to be governor. People don't give him a whole lot of credit, but 8-time Mr. Olympia proved people wrong. He's more than just a muscle. More than just brawn. There's a lot more to him. A lot more than just charisma. But a true thinker, somebody who mastered his art. Now, we have that in our poetry community as well. We have that in our author writing community, where we have people who engage in combat sports, whether it's boxing, wrestling, MMA, whatever have you. They also have a creative side. They have an artsy side. And there was a stereotype in high school that I fucking hated. Really did. It used to bug the shit out of me that football players and wrestlers were just these jocks that had no brain, had no sense of decorum, that had no sense of artistic style. And we saw that with films like Revenge of the Nerds. We had these A-type mentalities who, the whole fact is that they're in college, they're playing a sport that's brutal, but it used to be this perception that, oh, these guys are just dumb jocks and they drink massive loads of beer and do all these drugs and just, whatever have you. Now, all of that may be true in the same person, but that same person may be or may have artistic ability. We live in a time now where people can be so multifaceted that I'm just not even surprised anymore, and I shouldn't have been, for the way people carry themselves, for the way people do their day-to-day things. There are people who are masterful pianists, and they happen to be able to break a person's jaw, in that same stroke, because that's who they are. They've acquired more skills. In fact, I would be damn surprised if there's fighters and wrestlers and people who compete all the time out there who don't end up becoming serious, reputable artists. Let's go back even further in history. Let's look at Marcus Aurelius, the warrior emperor. Marcus Aurelius was a great thinker. If you've ever read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, talked about Stoicism. And I bring it here because I think that's what people mistake for lack of thinking. People see the disciplined soldier, the disciplined sailor, the disciplined fighter, the disciplined airman, as this person who is devoid of their own thought, devoid of their own thinking process and their own creativity. Well, we all know that's not fucking true. How many people have left the service and become great contributors to the world of art? Well, let's take on a few. How about the man in black himself, Johnny Cash? Air Force. Went on to be one of the most prolific songwriters of our time. Elvis did a little stint in the military. Morgan Freeman. And so many other people who have served our country and now are actors, reporters, writers, and just great contributors to the humanities and the culture that we are. And it's about time we recognize them and applaud them for being multifaceted, for being Renaissance men, for being stoic. Stoicism should not be mistaken for weakness, or should not be mistaken for ignorance, or if someone's open and they're vulnerable and they're taking their licks. Yeah, that's strength. Because other people would hide and not admit or not come forward with their crime or whatever it is that they did. And shame on those people. But let's get back to Stoicism. Let's get back to creative thinkers. And there's a work that I want to read today that a buddy of mine shared, and it reminded me of the power of the happy warriors and the happy warriors that we have out there. And it reminded me that despite people's background, they can be super creative. I mean, I was in the Navy for 5 active years, 3 years Army National Guard after that. And I'm an artist. I write poetry, books, plays. I've done skits. I'm working on scripts and all sorts of things. I've written regular reporting news. I've written articles, opinion articles. I've done a lot of things because there's this, like I said, presumption that people who are stoic, people that are disciplined in the art of combat, somehow lack creativity and artistic ability. That is just the dumbest preconception, and I hate that stereotype in athletes. Look at athletes like Kyle Dake, who's a wrestler, went to Cornell, super stud wrestler, super smart human being. I mean, these guys got degrees, and I don't know if you've been to college recently, but college is not easy. It's not a walk in the park. Not a lot of people finish college, and there's a reason why. Because it's fucking tough to study, to write, to think. So for those who have degrees, even if you don't have a degree and you're superior in your field and you're still creative on top of that, fucking kudos to you. Look at Joe Rogan. A lot of people love Joe Rogan. He's got probably the most heard podcast you've ever heard or even know about as far as podcasts. The Joe Rogan Experience. He is also not just a comedian, not just a great critical thinker, but he's also a martial artist. And a damn good one. Don't think just because he commentates for the UFC doesn't mean he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He does. He's a smart individual. Now, he may not be as integrated into the sport as those who are competing right now, but he's no slouch. And he's also a great creative thinker. That's what he brings to his show. That's why people tune in every time he has a show. And it's a 3-hour show. And he engages people who are brilliant. People who are smart. Even happy warriors like MMA fighters. He brings them on and has great discussions about all sorts of topics. You know, the topic doesn't necessarily have to stay on the fight game. It can go many places. It can do many things. So, I'm going to go ahead and read that work right now. It's called The Last Battle. It's brilliant. This was a righteous war. Darkness and light in mortal combat across the cosmos, with eternity as the prize. A cause to give your heart and soul to. She thought of her king, high and lifted up, with eyes like flames of fire, leading the battle, with his sword in hand. She thought of the day, that terrible, wonderful day, when it seemed that all was lost. His horse stumbled in battle, and he went down. Instantly, the minions were upon him, hungry for blood. There was a scream, and then silence, stillness, darkness, tears, and pain. The king's forces fell back. There was a darkness, black as the pit. But then there was a shout. He rose in death to conquer death. He threw the minions back and rose again in mighty power. But that was long ago. The war wore on. Long days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into years. She fought on, winning and losing until this moment, the single throbbing moment. What of this battle? What of this fight? She wondered again if this battle would be her last. It's a great point to read this, because we had a retirement in the MMA community, and it hit home. Ross Pearson, we love you. We thank you for the joy that you've given us in the arena of combat in the octagon. For the times you've won, the times you've lost. But you did it. You came out, you competed, fought the best, beat the best, had a great career, have gone the distance in their careers, have won titles and medals, and despite all that, they have the degrees. A lot of MMA fighters have degrees. A lot of them are former college Division I wrestlers. Ed Ruth, Ryan Bader, Aaron Simpson, C.B. Dalloway, pro fighters like Orlando Jimenez, guys that are on the rise, who went to big schools, and even the guys who haven't gone to school. You know they're a league above someone else when you take a look and to compete. So let's get back to the creative side. There are people in the MMA community that paint. So speaking of the Happy Warrior, talk about Kai Green. Not only is he an artist who sculpts his body, but he's an actor. His paintings are beautiful. His comics are fucking amazing. Talk about a renaissance man. Somebody who's just on the mark. Now, there are athletes that don't. There are athletes that are... But there are a lot of athletes that we don't know what they do. Because maybe they publish and they just haven't gotten out there as much. Maybe they've done great things, but hasn't gone viral yet. And some things don't need to go viral to understand what they've accomplished. So, salute our happy warriors today. Those who are in the arena, those who are marred and scarred up for entertainment, for the love of the fans, for the love of the sport, and acknowledge that there's a whole nother dimension to that person that you may not even know. I mean, take Orlando Jimenez, for instance. He's been in movies. Went to law school. Super smart individual. One of my best friends in the world. Creative. Also writes. And Super disciplined. Very stoic when he has to be. Very game person for life. So the mode's not to be somber, guys. The mode is to be in recognition and in awe of people who do more than just right. Who are more than just their immediate craft. Who have multiple crafts. Now that's not to say someone in a coffee shop right now giving their best fucking performance, and that is their heart and soul, and that is what they live to do. No one's to say that they are not what it means to be the artist or the poet or the starving college kid trying to make a buck, doing what they know, performing and playing music and reading pieces of their work, trying to sell their books. Now, those are real talents. Those are real fucking people. But there also might be another layer to them that they haven't discovered yet. That they haven't been put in a situation where they've been able to unlock and uncover those abilities that they have laying dormant. So, be ready. Be ready for that to be the norm. The happy warrior. The happy warrior is somebody who engages in protests, somebody who engages in combat, somebody who engages in the courtroom, somebody who is willing to be stoic in a moment of chaos. We have a lot of veterans coming back. These veterans are rapping, writing songs, writing poetry books, writing stories of combat and war and humanity. We have happy warriors. Somebody has military background, or you see some fatigues out there in the world and you look at them and say, and engage with life. Keep in mind that they have war to fight. Because there's an endless amount of conflict, and that's another story. But let's stick to the premise of the show today. There are other books out there championed by soldiers, sailors, wrestlers, fighters. If you have not read the last, Broken Before Battle by Suzette Howe, if you have not read that book, you are doing yourself a disservice to see how multifaceted and layered these fighters really are. Danny Martinez, Dominic Cruz, Jeremy Stevens. Sorry about that. These warriors who have multiple layers to their being. So, be mindful of the happy warrior. Don't begrudge them, and don't think for one instant that they cannot contribute to your creativity. This used to happen to me in college, and it sucked, but it actually made me think and act and be quicker with my thought process, because I was excluded. I was a little bit older when I went to college. I was 23 already. It's a lot of the age of the graduate students that were rubbing elbows with me, that were teaching the class. And you had these youngsters in there, 18, 19, 20 years of age. You know, haven't seen the world yet, haven't been out there in the thick of the shit. Haven't had a good brawl in Scotland. That haven't seen the Rock of Gibraltar or gone through the Panama Canal or been to Ghana. These kids who have a particular brand of showing you that you didn't really fit in. Well, they were, to be fair, they were kind of in awe with what I was doing. I mean, in college, I was wrestling, and I was in the National Guard as well. Worked at Garcia's, and I was a full-time student. And an English major, so I was reading, some of you English majors know, 20 books a semester about, on a good semester. What are you doing, Dojo? Sorry, that's Dominic Cruz's dog, Dojo. I don't know what he's doing. He looks hungry. Anyways. So, be mindful of the happy warrior. Don't think that they are devoid of thought. And there are a lot of people who are former military that can contribute. The way that these kids showed that they didn't want to show me love or think that I was a critical thinker is that they had a very set way with their groups. If we were partnered up in groups, they would just verbally say it. They'd be like, well, this may be tough because you've been out of school for a while. Or, they're kind of just scared of me. I'm kind of a bigger dude. And they're just kind of, oh, you've been to Afghanistan, you've been to Iraq, you've been to Dubai, you've been to the Malacca Straits. Oh, you got this crazy air about you. But I was a consummate reader, which kept me in the game. So, reading all those books on deployment really paid off in college. I was able to come back, and with the advantage of my writing skills from high school, I was able to build upon those and write papers and go to conferences and do fun shit. Just kind of be in league with these kids who were very, very smart. But they also kept their arm's distance because you were just an odd entity. And that's the way for veterans across the board. Those who are in college right now, I mean, you see them. You see them with their army backpacks. You see them with maybe their ball caps with USMC on it or whatever have you. And they just have an edge because they've seen shit and they've done shit. They've experienced things. Might be missing a limb or two. Might have battle scars. Might have cauliflower ear. But they're in that class right next to you. Smiling. Freaking out inside. Not quite sure what to do, where to place their hands, but they're stoic. They're trying to just make it through. Survive, grow, learn, be happy. So for those who are not part of the warrior community, give them a chance. Hear what they have to say. Embrace in their story. And allow them to be creative. Take a chance at showing them something they may not know. Telling them may not always allow them to get it done. And don't be surprised that they may not know how to do something that you know how to do very well. Shouldn't be surprised at that. Don't scoff at their inability to do something. Because they probably know how to do a gazillion things that you don't. That's for classrooms everywhere. I don't care if you're in first grade, high school, junior high, wherever. Don't scoff at someone's inability to do something because they may have a skill set you don't know about or you don't have. And if you perceive that you're better than them in every way, then okay, move forward with your fucking life and stop fucking with people. Leave them the hell alone. Let them grow at their pace. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's a war of attrition to garner skills over time to make it in this world. Some people get there quicker, some people don't. Some people don't ever get the chance to have their hand raised. They don't know that feeling. They don't know that feeling of applause after breaking your poem in a place where there's 100 other people who know the craft and know how things should sound, know how things should be placed. Just smile, be happy for them, clap. You know, you don't have to give them too much praise or too much kudos, but give them honest feedback. Give them that critical eye. That's always valuable to an artist. I don't care if you're former military or not. If they don't take it well, then okay. They're going to come back to the drawing table and they're going to look at it again and be like, you know what? Fuck, she was right. She said that I was cherry picking my goddamn quotes and I knew I shouldn't have done it, but I did. Or, damn, you know, I really should have focused on my characters. Should have really focused on my plot. Maybe dropped a little bit more details about the setting. Yeah, this is missing from my story. Whatever have you. Whatever feedback you get, embrace it and move the fuck on. Grow. Learn. And that's for the warriors too. Don't think just because you've been to combat, just because you've been through hell, people are just gonna let you sit and lack that critical feedback. No. Those are the people you give it to the hardest. Those are the people who say, hey, you know what? I know you want to really give this a go. You really want to improve. Here's how. Give them the tools. Give them the opportunity to dig into whatever's inside them that makes them want to do this. Now, don't deter them. Don't fucking dog them and write them. But give them that critical feedback that allows them to grow. And you can be tactful. There's a whole lot of motherfuckers in college right now that have no idea how to be tactful. And here's what I mean. I've seen workshops where people wrote dumb shit like, oh, that shit was horrible, or, oh, well, that sounded dumb, or they even verbalized it. Like, not only did they fucking write it, but they verbalized it. And I remember looking at them just like, oh, how ugly are you inside, to not see the beauty of what they attempted. Even if the work was not hitting home with me, which happened a lot, because you had some people that had a lot of mechanical problems before they could get to the creative aspect of what they're trying to do. Sometimes you would get the gist of what they're saying, but just mechanically it wasn't hitting home. That's where they need the feedback. That's where they need that critical eye. No, this is dumb, it could barely read it. Fuck that. Give them some valuable feedback, something they can work at. Because there are too many assholes in a workshop, too many assholes that do book clubs, and too many assholes that do poetry contests and things like that, that they don't know how to give proper fucking feedback. And at this stage in the game, they should have no excuse, but they are armed with arrogance, is what I can say. They don't have the beauty inside themselves, so they look for the ugly in everywhere else. Even though they're ugly inside, and they don't have that mirror of, you know, I'm looking for the happiness and the bliss, I'm looking for the ugly. How fucking often do we need to see horrible shit and horrible stories that go on elsewhere in our lives that we need to fucking pour it into our creative aspects? We don't. If you're a writer and you live in the news and you live in the comment section of YouTube, in the comment section of whatever mail you fucking read, or whatever online news agency you read, if you're that motherfucker that lives in the comment section and is got vitriol and venom in every word that you speak, don't fucking write a book, please. Stay the fuck away from the community of creatives. Because you're not going to give us valuable feedback that we need to grow. Now, be tactful. Be on point, but be tactful. And if you are giving responses to their stanzas and saying, hey, this doesn't work because of this, and your language comes off a bit tone deaf or a bit tart, reword things. Go back into your heart and say, hey, how can I make this different? How can I change it to give not a good spin? Because sometimes when you're giving feedback, there's a lot of feedback that's critical and that they may not benefit from like, they may be inward thinking about themselves because you gave them feedback that they need to work on something. But that's what they need. Regardless of how they feel, you have to deliver that feedback. You're only doing yourself a disservice if you don't. You're doing them a disservice. So give them the valuable feedback, but you can choose how to give it. You can say, hey, here's what was really good first, or even last. Sometimes you like hitting them with that 2-piece combo before you give them something nice. Writers fucking need that. Sometimes readers need that. Sometimes readers need to understand that not all writers are fucking Rhodes scholars and are at the top of their games and have the most crazy vocabulary. Some of the best shit I've ever read had the most simple vocabulary. I digress. So when you're giving feedback to someone, especially one of our happy warriors out there, please, please, please give them the feedback that they can take, that they can mold themselves into a better human being, that they can mold themselves into a better scholar. Because nothing gets me going more than critical feedback on my work. That way I can go back into myself and say, gosh, why didn't that work with that person? Golly, what do I need to work on? What was it about my poem that you didn't like? Or did it just not flow well? Was it the placement of certain words maybe? Was it the lack of punctuation? Where did I fall off with this poem? What worked with this poem? Tell me what did work. Maybe there's even a line to salvage that person's happiness soul. Maybe one line worked well for you, but it just didn't work well within that poem. And that's okay. That's great feedback. That allows the person to grow. Excuse me. Kind of a muggy night out here. Well, not muggy, I would say. This is like Southern California at its most beautiful, but I don't know. Something about tonight. Maybe it's my throat. I don't know. For those who are living for Twitter responses, I know you're out there. I know you're listening to me right now. You're out there. Damn, I just want people to support me in my journey. And there's a lot of good feedback and a lot of support. If you want to read a lot of positive shit, put yourself on Twitter and, just let people know where you're at in your process. You're going to get a lot of love and support. Especially if you follow quite a few people. And if you need that echo chamber, then that's great. College is not meant to be an echo chamber. It's not meant to be a safe space, but it is meant to be a place where you can fucking grow and learn and take the critical feedback. I mean, I had to lose a few fucking debates to learn how to debate. And that's not fucking sunshine and rainbows to fucking get your ass whooped verbally when somebody's making good points. When they have strong premise. When they have a strong position and they're backing that up with facts and they're backing that up with statistics and things like that. When you first engage in the academic discussion and you get your ass handed to you by a professor and you're like, why? It's because they're helping you fucking grow, ass twat. I'm sorry, but they're helping you grow. When your paper's all marked up red, which is an easy fucking fix, people. You go to Word, you go to File, you go to Options, you go to Proofing, and you just fucking check everything on there. That'll help eliminate a lot of the dumb shit you guys do. That's from one tidbit trick to another for you guys. That's just a little bit of something you guys can use. But at the same time, so not only is it just a mechanical thing, but if someone says, hey, your premises are weak, your premise is weak because of X, Y, Z, they're getting into the content at that point. They're not just looking at the mechanical errors, they're getting into the content, and they're explaining why those arguments don't work, or why your, sentence is not a good academic sentence, is because there's no thesis sentence, paragraph, I do apologize. they're criticizing your paragraph and say, hey, it's not an academic paragraph because you're leaving out critical fucking information. You're not providing examples of why this part of your thesis is a good point to make. And for those giving feedback on books, don't be the ass twat that doesn't read the whole book and then wants to fucking shit on it. If someone is giving you a short story, if they're giving you a book and they want you to give actual critical fucking feedback to them, read the whole thing. Take notes. Give them a proper analytical look at why you've come to your decision that you may not even read their work anymore or again, or you've come to the decision that, hey, their stuff is quite not where you would enjoy reading it, or you would be the person that buys that book on the shelf. Because maybe the first 3 chapters, let's just call it suck, and you didn't get into it, you didn't feel it, something about it was just not jiving with you, but then you get into chapters 5, 6, and 7, and you're like, where did this writer come from? That actually happens quite a bit. Sometimes it's just slow going. First couple chapters, you're like, Me personally, I like books that punch me in the mouth right away. I like poems that kick me right in the cojones right away. That way I'm like fucking tuned in and dialed in. Now, sometimes I get hit with that uppercut in the 3rd round. Sometimes you're like, hey, where did this come from? This is amazing. So, do your due diligence and take a pad with you, a writing pad, or just take your computer. You're reading the book. And for every chapter you read, write some notes down. For every short story you read, you can literally go line by line and find out what works, explain to them what works and what did not work, and how they can improve that story to make it more enjoyable or more consumable by readers at large. So, that's my show today, guys. I'm going to get back inside. I'm going to get back to enjoying the rest of the evening, get some rest finally. But embrace the happy reader, the happy warrior, the happy writer. Give them critical feedback. Don't be ass twats. And don't underestimate. Do not underestimate people because they have a vocation that deals with combat, that deals with tough shit. That doesn't mean they're not creative or that they don't embrace the art community or the creative community. They may be an avid fucking reader you may not know. That's what you do on deployment. That's what I did on deployment. I was reading 60 to 80 books on a deployment. That's what we do. We love reading. So if you're an author, here's a good tip. Get your books in front of people in the military and it'll be spread like wildfire. Reading is a huge pastime. If you get yourself to the USO, drop your book in a bin and you'll probably be getting a letter from Afghanistan, from Kabul, from somebody who read your book and found something that they enjoyed about it. You might be getting an email one day like, hey, read your book on deployment, it was fucking awesome. Do you have anything else? Well, yeah. Just thinking about it, I got this other book I'm about to release. Check out the date. Next thing you know, you got an avid readership. Especially when it comes to good books, those are passed around barracks quite often. Those are like hot potatoes. They jump from one rack to another. You're like, holy cow, I just saw so-and-so, reading that book, and then it jumped to so-and-so, and I just can't get enough. A good book will do that. So, embrace your happy warriors out there. Don't underestimate them. When they go to college and you're sitting next to one, a happy warrior, embrace them. Love them. Give them that critical feedback. Give them that love. And be sure to check out my books online. Go to Amazon. Check out my books. Hell's Waiting Room and Other Stories by David Welch. Mort dans le Bois. My play. Give my play a go. Check it out. You might like it. Think about it. Think about how you would perform it. Give it to your theater. Let them check it out. Got any questions on it? Let me know. If you guys want to submit your work to Creatacast, please send me an email, dwelch9627@gmail.com. I'll say it again, dwelch9627@gmail.com. Please send me your work. I'd be happy to read it on air. The more work you submit, the more I read on air. When you do submit your work, please, please, please make sure it's no more than 10 pages. If it's a poem, please separate the poems on different pages. If it's a fiction work, whether it's a chapter from a book or whether it's a short story, let me know. Send me a brief bio of yourself. And please, 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 for the love of kittens, make sure it's Times New Roman. 12 or 14-point font. Arial is fine. I will read that as well. And please make sure that it's in Word or that it's in a PDF document. Again, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Creatacast. Have a good night.